my name is Bill Robertson, and today I'd like to talk about some of the adventures I had while writing my latest book, Ghost Revisited 3. This book, like the others in the Ghost Revisited series, actually serves as a ghost hunter's guide because I go to the spooky sites myself and take photos of them so that others will know what to expect when they get there. Well, I've had some weird experiences, I'll tell you that right now, and some of them I'm going to talk about today too. My scariest experience this time occurred at Goose Hill Cemetery near the town of Sheldon in Wyoming County, New York. And here are the directions to the graveyard that I had a real hard time finding. And it was weird, it was like someone didn't want me to go there. Because people would give me explicit directions on how to get there, and I try to follow them and I get messed up and go someplace else. It was like it took me an hour to find this place. It was like someone didn't want me there. And I found out why later. Goose Hill Cemetery, officially known as St. John's Cemetery, is not an easy place to find, nestled in the farm country of western New York. The most direct route to take is to take Highway 77 north from Java Center for 2 miles, and then turn left onto Centerline Road. The town of Shelton is only a short distance from this intersection. The village consists of a few houses, a fire department, and St. John's Catholic Church. St. John's graveyard, however, is not behind the church, which is a mistake I made too. To find it, one must travel another mile down a steep hill, pass through a crossroads, then drive to the top of the next hill, where it sits on the right, surrounded by woods. I'd like to read a little bit more of this story to give you an idea of the hauntings that occur there. And this has got to be a creepy place at night. I went there during the day, thank God, or I may not have survived at all. According to locals, Goose Hill Cemetery is super haunted. Mostly people of German descent are buried there, and disembodied voices whispering in German have been heard echoing between the tombstones after dark. Witnesses have also spotted apparitions and glowing balls of light. Neighboring children have had their hair pulled and things thrown at them by furtive dark shadows. There's also heard footsteps and a voice screaming, "Mama!" on many occasions. In my experience there, it was even creepier. I was walking around there, finally after I found it after a half hour, and I was walking through the graveyard taking pictures, and I saw some really neat tombstones up along the woods. So I cut into the woods a little bit so I get a better angle to take my photos. And I got my foot tangled in a fence that had fallen down, and I didn't see because I was, paying more attention to the tombstones and where I was going, naturally. And when I got my foot tangled in this fence, I was trying to pull it free, and all of a sudden I got pushed from behind right down on my face. And I glanced over my shoulder and there was nobody there. And this was in the middle of the afternoon. I'm really glad I wasn't there at night like I said before. And then I tried to get up, and unseen hands held me down. I couldn't get up. I tried, and yet there was somebody holding me down, or something holding me down. And finally I said, "In the name of Jesus Christ, leave me alone." And finally the hands left, and I was able to get up and free my foot and then go on my way. And I took about 2 more photos, and I was out of there. As they say, this hill was named by the geese that a farmer once held there, or raised there, but now malicious spirits are doing the goosing. Another hard place to find is the Crybaby Cemetery in Clarion County, just west of Knox, Pennsylvania. It's located just off Triangle Road that is one of a series of dirt roads, many of which are unmarked. And that was the weird part about finding this place, is that none of the roads were marked. There were no name signs on any of them. And I tried for an hour to find this road, and I couldn't. So finally I saw a couple of locals standing in the front yard, and they looked like guys that were hunters and stuff. So I stopped and started talking to them. They said, "Yeah, we know where it is, but I don't know if we can explain how to get there." So finally they said, "We'll jump in our car and you just follow us and we'll take you right there." And that's what they did. And that was really nice of them to, spend some time driving me down there. So it was a half-hour drive from the guy's house. And then when I got there, that cemetery also was very creepy. It's sat way back from the road next to the woods. And the way it got its name was back in the early 1900s, there was a disease that went through the farming community and killed all the babies and some of the adults also. It's probably like smallpox or something like that. And a couple of babies that were twins mistakenly got buried in opposite sides of the graveyard. And so at night, on a full moon, you can hear them crying out to each other, trying to locate each other. And so that was how they got the name Crybaby Cemetery. And then also it's creepy in there because a lot of the gravestones aren't marked anymore, that they've eroded away so you don't know who was actually buried there. And also some of them just have a rock sitting on top of the grave. And there's all this undergrowth that has crept out and surrounded some of them, overgrown some of them. And then the one that you can actually see is had a lamb etched on the gravestone, but the head of the lamb is gone. So that creeped me out too. So if you want to go down there, don't follow your GPS as we get lost for sure. Just ask a local, and they'll give you, directions on how to get there. Closer to home is my cousin Wade Robertson's house at 7 Lay Street here in Bradford. It's haunted by a cranky old man ghost that all the members of his family have seen. And this ghost loved to haunt my cousin's wife, Jane. She'd be down in the basement doing laundry, and all of a sudden the light would go out, all by itself. And she'd yell out, "Turn that light back on!" And the ghost would naturally do it. And then also the ghost loved to tie knots in a string that raised and lowered the blinds in their living room. And if the ghost was angry, they'd be big knots. Also too, my cousin Julie, Wade's daughter, one night saw the ghost standing at her doorway. You could see its shadow coming in her bedroom. And so she hid under the covers right away and didn't get up until daylight. And the next day at breakfast, she told her parents about it, and her parents laughed her, away from the table. That can't be true, you're just making this up. But it wasn't so funny though the next night when the ghost visited them. So this is a ghost that, again, has been seen by every member of their family, and he's just like a cranky old man that likes to, try to scare the heck out of them. The Germania Hotel near Gailton in Potter County, Pennsylvania, is by far the creepiest place I discovered while researching Ghost Revisited 3. You need to check out the YouTube video of the investigation that went on there to get the ultimate chills. The hotel is haunted by 3 distinct ghosts: 6-year-old Crystal, a woman named Lacey, and the powerful male entity Jacob. And Crystal is just a little girl whose arm got tangled in the reins of the horse, and the horse dragged her to death out in the parking lot back in the late 1800s. And she's just like a little happy spirit who's there just exploring the hotel and giggling, and they've seen her quite often, but she's not, like malicious or anything. She's just there having a good time still, after death. The woman Lacey, though, is the exact opposite. She's a tormented spirit. And she was, for some reason, she likes to torment the hunters that visit the Germania Hotel in the fall. They'll be there laying, anticipating the opening of deer season, rolling back and forth in their bed, and they'll look up at the ceiling, and there she is hovering on the ceiling, glaring down at them. And also, she appeared to the investigative team as a white mist that came streaming out around their legs, and then she taunted them and said, "Do you see me?" Ha ha ha, like that. And then she actually confessed to hanging herself in the attic. So she's a real creepy ghost, to say the least. The creepiest of all, though, is the powerful male entity Jacob. And Jacob, for some reason, has a real vengeance against women. He's the one that even torments Lacey, the other ghost. She's scared to death of him. And also, he's done a lot of things to torment one of the lady owners of the Germania Hotel. He even shakes the whole hotel with his voice and scares everybody. And the investigative team that went there, also one of the members of that got really, what do I want to say, attacked physically by this ghost. One time he went out and was having a smoke out by the kitchen, and he got knocked down, and Jacob grabbed him by his collar and pulled him up the sidewalk for about 15 feet before he let him go. And then another time, he more or less was making fun of Jacob up in the upstairs, and he dared him to appear and chided him for his mistreatment of women. And the ghost got so angry that he knocked the voice box, the spirit box that the guy had in his hand, out of his hand, and then bit him on the wrist. And there's a big bite mark on his wrist, so you can actually see in the video if you watch it. So this is really a place that's super haunted. I'm not exactly sure I want to go there and stay all night, to say the least. I was there during the day too. To finish my book, I took a grueling 500-mile trip up through New York State in one day. I almost got arrested at the first place I visited that should remain nameless. And this is something you have to watch out if you're ghost hunting. You better make sure you pay attention to the signs. If you go to a graveyard and they tell you not to go there after dark, don't go there. In this case, this building had a lot of surveillance cameras around it, and there were a lot of posted signs saying, "Do not trespass." And luckily I obeyed them, and I stayed out on the road when I was taking my photos. And then as I went around the side of the building, the guy across the street was sitting on his porch, and he said, "Hey, you better watch out or she'll call the cops on you." And dang if she didn't. You know, even though I didn't trespass, which thank God I didn't do, the police then did come when I was leaving there. I got about a mile down the road from there, and all of a sudden the flashing lights came. I pulled off the road immediately, and the guy came out, and I said, "Can I help you, sir?" And he said, "Were you back there at the old asylum a while ago?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I was there. I was just taking pictures, but I didn't trespass on her land." And then I said, "If you like, I'll show you the pictures." He said, "No, that's not necessary. She calls us every day about someone down there." So apparently she's very protective of her property. And you have to, again, pay attention to that. If you're investigating someplace and it says posted, don't go on their land, or you could end up in a pokey, as they say, in handcuffs. And luckily the guy was very nice about it, and he was a ghost hunter too, and he said, "Man, I even have another place you could go visit." He told me about another haunted site right there in the area that I eventually went to. It was lucky I got a happy policeman, someone who was into what I was doing, so it actually turned out good for me. Okay, on this long trip I took, that was a 500-mile trip in one day, I also went to Cold Spring Cemetery in Lockport, New York. And this is very scenic and peaceful during the day, but again, now I'd like to read the story I wrote about it that's especially eerie. This place, again, I wouldn't want to go there at night because Cold Spring Cemetery sprawls across a 50-acre hillside along East Avenue, Route 31 in Lockport, New York. And it's right along the road, you can't miss it. Real easy to find. A perfect example of the Victorian rural graveyard. A dozen 1812 war soldiers were the first to be buried there. The squad was on its way to the Niagara frontier when they happened upon Charles Wilbur's Tavern near the springs where they camped. The men went on a drinking binge and succumbed to whiskey poisoning. After their bodies were interred in unmarked graves, local settlers were planted around them soon after. It wasn't until 1841 that the graveyard was officially incorporated. The tombstones are now arranged in circles that completely encompass the hilly ground. That's the thing I liked about it the most, that it was, very well organized, that the tombstones were all in circles like this, all the way around the different hills. And it was really a neat, peaceful place to visit. The road running past Cold Spring Cemetery is said to be haunted by two entities. Most of the sightings have occurred near a small bridge. The first fan was that of a curvy girl in her mid-20s who was picked up hitchhiking and kidnapped and murdered. She is described as having long blonde hair and no face. She has been seen wandering barefoot along the highway dressed in a black top and pants, and is said to be illuminated by actually a bright aura. Some cemetery visitors have also been approached by a young woman who asked them for a ride. Before they can even answer her, she evaporates from view. Another ghost seen stumbling along Route 31 is that of an elderly lady. Sometimes she appears in the middle of the road directly in front of the speeding vehicles. 2 reported accidents were caused when drivers swerved to miss her. Another motorist said he drove right through her without causing her harm. Police were summoned after several such episodes and arrested the woman in question. She was never booked at the police station though, because she vanished from the officer's cruiser before arriving there. So this is another place I'd recommend that you go and visit, because it's got some really spooky history involved with that. Finally, I ended my long trip at Fort Ontario in Oswego, New York before driving home. Fort Ontario is haunted by a multitude of dead soldiers, being that it was an active military installation from the French and Indian War through World War II. The most interesting legend is that of Corporal George Fikes, who died there during the American Revolution. It is said that anyone who walks over his grave will be haunted by him forever. Those who jump over it, though, can name the person they would like Fikes to torment. So if you got a bad enemy, go up there and jump over his grave and tell you who you want him to torment. I thought that was a pretty cool legend. And you can see the bare spots on both sides of the grave, so you know that people are doing this all the time. If you want some spooky fun, check out Ghost Revisited 3. Again, it contains 34 creepy tales, perfect for the Halloween season. And right now I'm working on Ghost Revisited 4 because people keep coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, to give me more and more ghost stories. I was only going to write 2 books, but I keep getting more and more really cool stories, so I'm just going to keep doing these books until people quit giving me more stories. So thank you very much for your time, and happy Halloween.